Whoop. A rare physical specimen with the proverbial arm talent to make all the NFL throws, but he's prevented from doing so by a lack of timing, accuracy, and touch. Milton is gifted with a cannon for a right arm and can throw the balls as hard or as far as you want. Just like our Lord and Savior, Joe Milton, we are here. We are live today. Once again, no watch party today, no Monday Night Football, but we are live. How's it going, Jack?
Jeez, what a whirlwind this last week has been. I mean, that sort of feels that way always when you're coming down to the wire the last week of the season, but it's a fun time to be a sports fan. It's fun to jump in and watch all these games. Multitude of different leagues for me too, because I've been watching the Lakers a lot more as well. So I'm just enjoying life right now.
Yeah, the Cavs are the best team in basketball, which is exciting. So I'm vibing.
Yeah, looking forward to later tonight. But judging by the WWE belt, we've got the Monday Night Raw Netflix premiere later tonight. So looking forward to that.
Love it.
So we got a lot of football to talk about too. So
we have a gargantuan amount of football to talk about. Happy New Year, by the way. Hopefully we are the last people to tell you that. When do you stop saying Happy New Year, Jack?
After like 2 days, probably.
Okay.
I think that's just kind of when you're like, all right, yeah, it's the new year now. Let's just move on.
Fair. So we have some news today. A couple coach firings, a couple coach non-firings. We have our world famous power rankings, our tier list coming up, and both of us have our all-pro teams. My beloved all-splash team and Jack's all-Jack team. No Aaron Donald, unfortunately, for either of us. Although this year he probably could have made a run at it again.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. That's just, Aaron Donald thing. So
I just wonder what it would be like if he was still here and then we still had like the pass rush talent that we do around him right now. It would be kind of insane. So.
That'd be, man. And Fisk was great. Verse is going to probably win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Then you throw in, I'm blanking on the guy he was awesome last year.
Kobe Turner.
Yeah, Kobe Turner was awesome last year next to Donald, and this year awesome again, even without Aaron Donald. So, yeah, shout out to Nate in the chat. What up? How's it going, man? Big dub on Saturday. Yes, sir. Ravens clinch the division. Michael Pierce interception, by the way, the third heaviest player in the history of the NFL to record an interception. And by body mass index, BMI, the highest BMI ever by an intercepting player. Also, big dub coming up, hopefully, on Saturday. We'll get into our playoff brackets in a little bit, though. So,
it's true. We do need to go over the playoff bracket.
Yeah. Do you mind falling down to the 4 seed?
Not really. No. Yeah. I mean, I think we can get into it later when we talk about the Rams. They did rest starters this past week, but I think that they were kind of in like a let's just not have everybody get injured this time around. And unfortunately, they did not completely avoid that scenario. So
yeah.
I'll touch more on that a little bit
later. And of course, the Ravens lose quote-unquote Pro Bowl wide receiver Zay Flowers. Doesn't look like he's going to play Saturday, which really is unfortunate for Baltimore. And I know Baltimore has some receiving talent. Of course, Flowers is the leader of the group, and you have Andrews. Rashad Bateman had a really nice season. But losing your number one wide receiver sucks regardless of the circumstance. I mean, they're a better team than Pittsburgh, but of course we've seen these Ravens-Steelers games in the past. It doesn't matter who's better. It's just a matter of those rivalry games, So, Jack, where do you want to start on our map today?
Well, I'm currently throwing together, because it's a live stream and things get a little bit goofy, I'm trying to currently throw together slides right now for our all-pro teams. So while I set that up in the background, we're going to go ahead and get the tier list up.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Nate, the connection to Mark Andrews is growing weekly. Yeah, I mean, Andrews has been cooking. He will be featured in my all-splash team somewhere, by the way. 11 touchdowns for Mark, led all tight ends and was like third or fourth in the NFL in total. And he was ice cold for like the first 2 months of the season. So here are our tier lists entering week 18. Now we got to update it, 14 teams have made the playoffs. A couple of those playoff pretenders dropped out. And a couple of those LOL tier teams kind of blew up their draft stock this week.
Yeah, some of them in particular.
New England.
We're just going to go ahead and... Yeah.
I do want to talk about Joe Milton, though. I read his draft report from Lance Zierlein of NFL Network or NFL.com. There are few athletes I've seen on a football field that are like Joe Milton. And I mean this in the most respectful way possible to Josh Allen. Josh Allen played one snap yesterday against the Patriots. If he had played any more, you would have seen the class difference between Josh Allen as an athlete and Joe Milton, who is a class above as an athlete.
Your mic came unplugged.
Huh?
You got unmuffled.
Oh, okay. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe Milton is a singular athlete. He is what people think Anthony Richardson is. Joe Milton is that, but even more. It is truly absurd. The comparison on the CBS graphic was Jamarcus Russell, and I know that has bad connotations, but athletically speaking, Joe Milton is a 1% of the 1% athlete. The arm hose might have the strongest arm in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying he's accurate with that arm, but in terms of pure arm strength, Joe Milton is 99 throw power. 99 arm strength, 99 throw power, however you want to grade it. Josh Allen, 97 or whatever. Justin Herbert's up there. Patrick Mahomes is up there. Old man Aaron Rodgers is up there. Anthony Richardson has a hose. Kyler has one of the strongest arms in the NFL. Joe Milton is above all of them to me. Absolute, unbelievably gifted physically. And I would love to see him play more. Hopefully some preseason games. I don't want Drake May to get hurt or anything, and I like Drake May, and I think he has a bright future in the league. But this is a case of I wish there was one of the rival leagues. Like I wish the XFL or the AAF or the USFL, whatever secondary league you want to choose. I wish these had a larger following, a larger base of support, because guys like Joe Milton are just fun to watch at the quarterback position. And this week we saw a lot of those backup types, those QB2, QB3 players ball out. Michael Penix, of course, he's going to be the starter for Atlanta moving forward. He was awesome against Carolina. He had one really unfortunate interception off a receiver's hands again, but he had 7 big-time throws, PFF grade of like 94. Just insane stuff. Tanner McKee looked pretty good for the Eagles. I know it's against like the Giants backups. I get that. And the Giants stink. I understand. But Tanner McKee was making some throws. So,
yeah, it's always that curious time of year when like players that you don't, because teams are resting starters left and right. Mm-hmm. So everyone is always trying to like make sure team players stay healthy or something like that. So you always get to see like those like unheralded names that don't really appear that often, or like it's really like that guy is still in the league ? Type deal. So
Marcus Mariota on the Commanders led a game-winning drive to shock both the Packers, although it didn't matter for the Packers because they ended up losing to Chicago regardless. But Marcus Mariota balled out yesterday. So big time for everybody.
That's kind of a shocker too. That's it's lost in the shuffle because obviously the Bears are out, the Packers are in, but that was the first time since 2018 the Bears have beaten the Packers in any capacity. So
yeah, big time, big ups. And listen, I understand to the 30 fan bases that are not involved in the Bears-Packers rivalry, this looks really stupid if you're the Bears. Why are you trying to beat the Packers? Why are you trying to win it week 18? This is going to hurt your draft stock. You'd rather be 4-13. There are Bears fans today. There are Caleb Williams fans today. That is a ginormous win. I understand it screws them over draft-wise. I understand they dropped some spots in every round. I get that.
You know how old that rivalry is, though.
But that rivalry, and you're Caleb Williams, and you go into Lambeau Field and you beat the Packers, you lead a clutch drive to beat them. The Packers had just gone down. They just basically won the game with their backup Malik Willis. It's like, Here we go again. No. This is not a here we go again. Caleb Williams, the kahunas, drives down the field, leads a game-winning drive. Bang. Bears win 24-22. Cairo Santos nails it from 50. That is just ginormous. Rivalry games matter in the NFL. Some matter more than others. But when you're in this Bears, Packers, Ravens, Steelers, Rams, Niners, Falcons, Saints, in my opinion, the Chiefs, Raiders, some of these rivalries really, really matter. Eagles, Cowboys, when you get a chance to win one of those, it doesn't matter the draft position. It doesn't matter. Caleb Williams beat the Packers at Lambeau Field on his first try. How many Bears quarterbacks can say that? Not many of them. And he can hold that, and he can go heading into next season. He can have the confidence and say, I beat the Packers at Lambeau. It doesn't matter who was playing. It never matters who was playing. You got a dub at Lambeau Field against the Packers. Caleb Williams, good job, pal.
Yeah, well done. Big ups. I'm trying to get text to match right now, so give me a moment.
It do be like that.
Slides is being really goofy, but we should just dive in. I don't think we really need to talk. I mean, we can touch on the Super Bowl contenders, but I left that tier alone because.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Bills played their backups, lost New England. Detroit demolished Minnesota. That's a big win for Detroit. Looked great defensively. Baltimore clobbered Cleveland. They win the AFC North. Kansas City played their backups, got shut out by Denver. Philly played their backups, still beat the Giants, win 14 games for the second time in 3 years. So I think those are clearly the top 5 teams. You can argue the order. I don't think there's any order of those 5 teams that I would be opposed to looking at. Like I have bigger fish to fry if you're looking at like a power rankings. Like, oh, ESPN has their power rankings. Their top 5, as long as it's these 5 teams, I'm totally cool with. Yeah, you can shake them up, roll them out. Any order is fine by me. Then the bottom group, we can go ahead and add. Do we want to add any teams to the bottom there? Like we can just add the eliminated teams if we want.
Yeah, I mean,
goodbye Dallas, goodbye Seattle, goodbye Arizona, goodbye Indy, goodbye Atlanta. Tough loss. Goodbye Cincinnati. We can finally put you in your grave. Yeah. Goodbye, Arizona's Miami.
Out. Miami's out.
And the Colts are out.
Out.
And the Falcons. A very Falcons tough elimination. Close. Yeah.
Tough. That's a tough one to swallow
for the
Falcons.
And you look at, they needed the Bucs to lose, and of course the Bucs won 27-19. We can talk about the game in a minute. But Michael Penix and Drake London, that is all that matters if you are Atlanta. They looked spectacular. Drake London is an awesome NFL wide receiver. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle because there's a lot of awesome NFL wide receivers, but Drake London is like awesome. He's an alpha. He's just spectacular. And Penix balled out against Carolina. I know they lost in overtime. Tough way to lose, but he balled out. London balled out. Bijan balled out. Penix is not quite in that group yet, but there are a few teams with a better running back 1 and wide receiver 1 than the Falcons. And maybe one day Kyle Pitts figures it out. I don't know if that's going to be today, but maybe one day he figures it out. And they have a really nice number 2 in Darnell Mooney, although I don't think he got a target yesterday, unfortunately.
Shame.
All right, let's rank the remaining 9 playoff teams. Jack, who do you think is number 6, the top of the playoff contenders?
Top of the playoff contenders tier?
Or we can go bottom. We can go either 14 going up or 6 moving down.
Let's go 14 going up.
Okay. Houston.
Yeah. That's probably the easiest one. This team screams first round exit.
Yeah.
I think you and I both been saying
they have won the AFC South like 8 times now. All 8 times they've immediately played in the Saturday 4:30 ESPN/ABC game.
Yeah. I don't really think that they pose much of a threat to the Chargers. Granted, I don't think the Chargers pose much of a threat to too many other teams out there, but the Texans are not one of them. So
right. 13 here.
13 is a tricky one.
I am torn between Denver and Pittsburgh.
I'm probably gonna say Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I feel like with Pittsburgh here, they've always turned into like Mike Tomlin needs to get his like 9 or 10 wins, and then they call. And I always say that as a joke, and then it actually happens, and then they're basically the tank is empty by the time they get to the playoffs. So
yep. So like if they have a cold start, like they've had a couple years, they start like 3-6 or 3-7, then they're going to be the best team in football to get to 9 or 10 wins. But if they have a good start like they did this year, they were 8-2 or 8-3. They led the Ravens by 2 games in the division, and within 10 days they lost the division. They finished 2 games behind Baltimore. They led the division on like December 15th by 2 games.
That's not good.
Not great. Then I would throw Denver next. Although you can start to have that conversation, Denver or Washington. And I will add the caveat that Green Bay, if you are playing Malik Willis, is number 14, even behind Houston, unfortunately. Malik Willis is a great story, but we need real NFL quarterbacks in the playoffs. So Jordan Love, rest up, get healthy, please. And we can have the same disclaimer with the Eagles that they are not a top 5 team if you are starting Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee. They're a very good team still. I would take them to beat Green Bay regardless, but I don't think they have a Super Bowl aspiration without Jalen Hurts.
Exactly. So. All right, we get to the playoff pretenders tier, I think.
This is a weird group of 5. This is another one I would be okay with any order. I think Minnesota probably is the top of the group. Just they're 14-3, and you somewhat have to respect that. But they did lose to the Rams, and they are playing the Rams in the first round in LA, so they could lose that one.
They already have lost that one, in fact.
They have.
It's one of the few games the Rams have scored 30 or more points this year, so I don't think there's been too many. But that was one. I think it was that, and then the Buffalo game, and then they had 27 against the Niners the first go around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's close enough to 30, I guess. I don't know. The Rams' offense has been like destroyed by injuries in the first half of the season.
Yes,
and in the second half of the season, I feel like the big problem with the Rams is that Cooper Kupp is not functioning the same way he used to.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever ankle problems or hamstring problems or all this stuff that's come up this year and last year, etc., you can tell it's like gotten to him because he's not getting separation the way he used to, and that's hurting the Rams offense, and it's limiting their plays. Like, and when they're not an explosive offense, when they don't have that capability to like in one play take the top off the defense or something like that, it hurts their offense as a whole. But with that being said, anytime you got Matthew Stafford, you got Puka Nacua, you got Kyren Williams, they're capable of winning games. And I think that they're very capable of beating Minnesota next weekend. It's just a matter of, are they going to let that offense limit them? Are they going to let like what's going on with Cooper Kupp limit them? Or are they going to start utilizing more guys like Tutu Atwell? Maybe I thought Jordan Whittington looked fantastic yesterday.
Hey, he made my all-splash team.
One of them.
One of them.
You made 4, so
yeah, and a rookie team.
But yeah.
We dig deep, baby.
I think that the Rams, it's funny that I think that their defense now gives them more of a chance to win their games in their current state because you were out on their defense in week 2.
And then God, that defense sucked. But they have figured it out. I've
done nothing but figure it out all year long, and then the offense is kind of like, they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I trust Stafford as like a top 10 quarterback. Kyren is great. Puka is great. Cooper Kupp is a shell of himself. The offensive line's reasonable. Reasonable. I don't want to go too strong, but
the offensive line isn't deep. They're good, but they're not deep. I think that's going to be one of my positions of need for the Rams when come draft season is going to be depth at the O-line, because you can't have an O-line where your right tackle goes down and you have to play Joe Noteboom, and that is like turning your offensive line from a brick wall into 5 turnstiles. So
yeah.
And then you have Jonah Jackson sitting on the bench the whole time. They paid a bunch of money for him. He's not, and they've only tried to use him at center. He's not a center. Yeah, Bo Limmer is the guy. I'm not trying to compare Bo Limmer to anyone else. I'm just saying that Bo Limmer is the guy right now. The Rams have found their man.
So I think Minnesota and the Rams are interchangeable.
Sure.
It's fitting that they play each other this week. If Minnesota was at home, maybe I pick Minnesota. I think I will take the Rams.
I'm probably going to move these teams up a tier, to be honest.
That's fair.
I don't think I would take the Bucks or the Chargers over either of them.
Right.
Washington, I would put.
I have my arguments for the Bucks.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, is the best out of this group. Ooh, Puka's close. The Stafford to Puka is close.
Stafford to Puka's up there.
Because I don't think Darnold is good enough to be in this conversation, as good as Justin Jefferson is. Puka and Evans, I think, are both top 10. Baker and Stafford, I think, are also both top 10. That's a great pair. And I'm not going to discount Jaden to Terry or Herbert to Ladd. I think are a cut below. They're in the Darnold to Jefferson tier. But I think Tampa could beat every team in the NFC. They have beaten the teams ahead of them in the NFC. They beat Detroit. They beat Philly. They did beat Washington earlier in the season. So they have a path here, and I would honestly not be opposed to them against Philly next week. They have the traditional, the Bucks stop the run. So maybe that helps contain Saquon Barkley, and I would imagine Jalen Hurts is okay by then. I'm not opposed to the Bucks as like a dark horse Super Bowl threat. I know they had Godwin when they beat Philly and beat Detroit earlier in the season, and that's a huge loss. But Jalen McMillan has balled out in recent weeks. He had a huge touchdown. Baker, one of the most insane throws I've ever seen Baker Mayfield make in his life to score against New Orleans. And I don't know, man. Tampa has been there before, been there, done that. This is their 5th straight playoff run, their 4th straight division title. Baker's been there, done that. Mike Evans is a Super Bowl champion. The defense,
Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer. We got to talk about that too.
Mike Evans, I think that ship sailed a couple of years ago. I think is sort of the Larry Fitzgerald mold, minus Fitzgerald had 2008, which is a cut above. But then Mike Evans 2020 was spectacular and, of course, won the Super Bowl. Tampa gives me, they could lose to Washington. I wouldn't be shocked, but they could also be in the NFC Championship game, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. Shout out to Baker Mayfield. Total
Baker.
Career resurrection right there. And he's looked good. It's not easy when you have to, you step in to replace Tom freaking Brady, but he's done that, and he's done pretty solid so far.
Back-to-back division titles. He's going to be in my all-splash team in a little bit. Yeah, shout out to Baker, man. Former Ram, former Panther. Remember when the Panthers had both Darnold and Baker on the same team?
Oh my God, that was such a weird time.
Yeah, such a bizarre time. Bryce Young has figured it out, by the way. Bryce freaking Young was unbelievable against Atlanta.
Yeah, Bryce Young was really, really, really damn good. That's a good confidence building win to go into next year and end the year out on.
Mm-hmm. Big stuff. All right, Washington. I'm going to put them behind LA. I don't trust the defense at all.
I do trust the offense, though.
Behind the Chargers, not the Rams.
Okay. Yeah. You said behind LA, and I was
okay. They're both LA. That's
real
okay.
LA team. Wait for another time.
That'd be a fun one. Offensively, I'd probably take the Rams. Defensively, I'd take the Chargers. That'd be a good matchup. If that was the theoretical Super Bowl,
I don't know if I would be able to show my face in public if the Rams lost the Super Bowl to the Chargers. I think I would just stop. I would I would cancel the show. We're done. Somebody asked too. I love how funny it is that this is just now becoming a thing, because people are talking about what would happen if the Rams and Chargers both had the host games on Championship Sunday.
No, this has happened before. The Jets and Giants both hosted the AFC and NFC title games, and they just offset it by a day.
Yeah, I think Goodell also answered it in 2008. He said they would just offset one to Saturday or Monday.
Yeah. So that is a great problem to have, because SoFi is a beautiful, beautiful venue. I do want to circle back to Dan. The council request to put the Seahawks at mid. I agree with you. Except in this case, we're only ranking the playoff teams. Everyone else is you're in the lots of losses.
The LOL is laugh out loud and lots of losses. Your team's done. So.
Lots of L's. And then Gerard Mayo got fired over Mike Tomlin. I call BS. The Mike Tomlin thing is
that's surely a debate, isn't it? Because And Dan was like talking to me about this the other day too. He was texting me about like how it's kind of weird how Tomlin is like still employed even though he has done a whole lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Patriots just let go of Jared Mayo after a year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was also a little bit pissed off when I saw like the statement from the team and like what Rappaport was tweeting about it and stuff. And it's like they want their next coach to inherit a better situation. That irks me.
Yeah, I think you really just screwed over Gerard Mayo here. And I'm not saying he's a great coach or anything, but like Rob Gronkowski said on the Fox show yesterday, it's hard to judge a coach in his first year, especially a team with as little talent as the Patriots have. Pop Douglas is your wide receiver 1. Please be serious in the year of our Lord 2024. The tight ends, not great. The running backs, Ramondre Stevenson just likes putting the ball on the he just yep, here you go. Here, defense, here you go. Just take it. Please take it. I don't want it. Take the ball. Ramondre, what's the issue with the fumbles, man? Drake May showed some promise. Joe Milton was unbelievable, like I've said. And the defense had their moments. Christian Gonzalez is very good. I believe they were without Christian Barmore for most of the season, and he's your 1A, 1B with Gonzo. And it's tough with first-year head coaches. But the Tomlin thing is obviously, being an AFC North fan, I have my strong opinions here, but Pittsburgh would be so much better off if they just had one bad season. If they had one bad season and they were just awful, just disaster.
0-17.
Oh, maybe not that bad. If they could win like 4-13, like bad enough that it makes change happen, but not so bad that it's a black mark on.
I mean, if you don't make change after 0-17, then there's a problem there.
Yeah, there's problems there.
Yeah,
like that's a black mark in perpetuity for the Browns and the Lions that they went winless. But if the Steelers had just like a stereotypically bad season, the Ravens 2015, they went 5-11. That netted them Ronnie Stanley in subsequent rounds in the 2016 draft. They got better draft picks. All it takes is one really bad year, and that can sort of revitalize a franchise. And I think Pittsburgh needs one. And I know, yes, that would benefit the Ravens. I understand that. Although ironically, the Ravens swept the Steelers the year the Ravens went 5-11, so it didn't actually help the Steelers that the Ravens were that bad. But regardless, the Steelers need a really bad season, and they're not going to have one with Tomlin. Tomlin is too middle of the ground or too middle of the road for them to be truly bad, and I think he's too middle of the road for them to be truly excellent. There was a moment this season that Pittsburgh cracked the code. They were really, really good. It's like maybe you can argue them that they're better than the Ravens, or you can argue they're a top 6 team in football, or what have you. And then by the end of the season, you saw those flaws, and George Pickens, one catch in a big game at the end of the season, trying to knock the Bengals out of the playoffs. They couldn't do it, right? The defense is really good when 90 is doing things and Cam Hayward is doing things, but when 90 isn't doing things, like he didn't do a whole lot Saturday. When Cam Hayward's not doing things, that defense can get got, especially on the back end. But if they went 5-12 one year, I know people would freak out and Tomlin would lose his record of winning seasons or non-losing seasons. It's the Mike Evans thing. There is value in being a 1,000-yard receiver every year. There's value in winning 9+ games every single season. There's value in making the playoffs. You can't win the Super Bowl unless you make the playoffs. But there's also value in having that top-end season, right? If you are comparing the career of Cooper Kupp and Mike Evans, there is a reasonable subset of the population that would rather say, I want the Triple Crown. I want to have the greatest receiver season in the history of the NFL. Surpassing, think about this, Cooper Kupp had a better receiving season than any Jerry Rice season. You'd obviously 99.999% of people would take Jerry Rice's career over Cooper Kupp's career, but you could make a really compelling argument. Cooper Kupp has the single greatest offensive season by any player in the history of the sport.
That'll never happen again.
Yeah, it's tough to argue that.
Triple Crown, he wins Offensive Player of the Year too. I always forget about that one. And then he catches the game-winning touchdown on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Super Bowl MVP.
Wins Super Bowl MVP.
That is as perfect of a season as you could possibly ask for. The only season I can think of that can get up there is Lawrence Taylor, 1986, won MVP and won the Super Bowl. He did not win Super Bowl MVP, but the Giants did win the Super Bowl. So that's up there. MVP and your team wins the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes had a season. He won the MVP, won Super Bowl MVP. That's as perfect of a season as you could ask for. Of course, wide receivers don't win MVP, so I think that's kind of out there. Other than the Travis Kelce movie, that's the only world that receivers win MVPs. He won like 9 MVPs. The Travis Kelce stand-in won like 9 MVPs. So, I don't know, man. There's so much to talk about in the NFL.
Yeah, there is. We could go on and on and on.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're like the Rams, after they won the Super Bowl, they were horrendous.
Injuries, but yes.
That helped replenish the farm, if you will. That said, to
when they
Sean
lost
McVay and Les
everybody,
Snead, figure it out, figure something out. But if you're Pittsburgh and you are this organization that never has bad seasons, you get complacent. How many good offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators had the Steelers had in the Tomlin era? You can count them on one hand, and he's been around 20 years. You'd think, like even John Harbaugh, who has a lot of the same tropes as Tomlin, won Super Bowl, always a high floor, playoff choker, etc. John Harbaugh has like a group of good coordinators, right? Defensive coordinators from Baltimore are always getting hired. Like Zach Orr is going to get hired somewhere probably in a couple of years. Anthony Weaver is now the DC in Miami. Miami had a great defense this year. Mike McDonald, head coach in Seattle now. Dean Pease was a retread. Todd Monken's a bit of a retread, but he's getting head coaching looks. Greg Roman got hired again for the Chargers. It's just Harbaugh has, this coaching tree, if you will. But what's Mike Tomlin's coaching tree? Actually, I'm going to look that up. What is Mike Tomlin's coaching tree? Because Pro Football Reference.
And then look up the Sean McVay coaching tree by comparison.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Tomlin, his coaching tree shows employed. Bruce Arians, offensive coordinator. Okay. Brian Flores, who was a head coach before coming to Pittsburgh. Todd Haley, I believe, was a head coach before coming to Pittsburgh. Yes, that would be. Yes, he went from head coach to offensive coordinator. Dick LeBeau was a head coach before coming to Pittsburgh. Mike Munchak was a head coach, I think, before coming to Pittsburgh, right? Yes, he was a head coach before coming to Pittsburgh. Arthur Smith was a head coach before coming to Pittsburgh. So, yeah, there are some NFL head coaches here, but they were all coaches before they came to Pittsburgh, besides Bruce Arians. And Bruce Arians was famously the quarterback's coach for, I don't know, Peyton Manning. Ever heard of him? So
must be some
also,
guy.
the Bruce Arians thing is a little.
I hear he also goes by Calculating Manning.
That's
those commercials
that got me off guard. That's a good one. And I will say there's a bit of a the Bruce Arians thing. He did take over for Chuck Pagano, so that wasn't exactly he went from Pittsburgh to Indy as offensive coordinator, then steps in, wins coach of the year as the interim head coach when Pagano was away with cancer, and then he gets a job in Arizona. So that wasn't like wasn't like Pittsburgh then becomes a head coach. So Mike Tomlin has a lot of head coach elsewhere, then becomes a coordinator. Okay, great, but how many guys are coordinator with the Steelers and then go off and do bigger and better things? None of that list. So that's a bit of a catastrophe. All right, Jack, are you ready?
I think so.
That's great.
Let's go ahead and get up our all-pro teams for 2024-25.
Beautiful.
Including both years in there because screw it. Why not?
Yeah, we love to see it.
I feel like the NFL should do that instead of I know they've traditionally called it like this would be the 2024 season. I feel like you should just call it 24-25 because yes, it is a mouthful, but that's what it is. The playoffs and week 18 now that they're doing an extra week and they want to do another one too. They want to have like a 18 game regular season. You might as well just call it after both years.
Yeah, I prefer when it's just the 1 year, but yeah, that's a minor.
Fair enough. No,
I don't really care one way or the other.
Fine. All right, Splash. We're starting off with the all Splash special teams.
Absolutely. So, I do full transparency here. I make 4 of these teams every year. I started in 2019 with one team, actually. And there's a history of these. In 2019 and 2020, I only did one team. But in 2020, I had a tie for second place quarterback. And I'm like, I kind of need to do a third team. So I started doing a third team. And then in 2022, Eagles fans were mad at me because I didn't have enough Eagles on my team. So I made an offhand comment like, oh, the Eagles would have like 5 guys on the fourth team. And the Eagles did have 5 guys on the fourth team. They just had, Jalen Hurts was fourth team. Devontae Smith was fourth team. Both corners were fourth team. TJ Edwards, I think, was Edwards on the Eagles at the time? I think he was, because I know he's on the Bears now. But regardless, they had like 5 guys on the fourth team. So I started making a fourth team, and I've made a fourth team for the last 3 years. But yeah, we'll start with the fourth team. Obviously not shown here, but my fourth team, special teamers, Brandon McManus, the Packers, Corey Bojorquez, absolute cannon of a left leg, actually, for the Browns, Jordan Whittington of the Rams as my kick returner, and Darius Davis of the Chargers as my punt returner. Third team, Nick Folk of the Titans led the league in field goal percentage, Logan Cook of the Jaguars, Malik Washington of the Miami Dolphins, and Calvin Austin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had a top 50 draft grade on him, by the way. Second team, Chase McLaughlin of the Commanders, Michael Dixon of the Seahawks, Austin Eckler also of the Commanders, and Marvin Mims, the legend himself, of the Denver Broncos. And of course, the first team, Chris Boswell. I think he should be the real All-Pro kicker. AJ Cole, former All-Pro punter. Devontae Turpin, the best returner in football, and Khalif Raymond of the Detroit Lions.
All right, you got your defense next.
Defense, this is a fun one. No Aaron Donald at the defensive tackle spot, and Dexter Lawrence, the best defensive player in football this season, missed a third of the season. So unfortunately, he will not be on the first team, but he did make my third team. So running through the fourth team here. With a fourth team, I have a thing that I do if 2 players are on the same team and they're in that group that might go in that fourth tier. I just put both players from that team in. So this year's defensive tackle fourth team, Calais Campbell and Zach Seiler of the Miami Dolphins, and then Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat of the Tennessee Titans. Shout out to T'Vondre Sweat. He also made the all-rookie team. Edges, Kyle Van Noy, Jared Verse. Linebackers, Blake Cashman, Jacoby Dean. Corners, Jalen Ramsey, Garrett Williams. Safeties, Brian Branch and Derwin James. My defensive back, Darius Washington. I went through the special teams. Third team, Zach Allen and Dexter Lawrence. Edges, Nick Benito and Jonathan Grenard. Linebackers, Bobby Okereke and Jamian Sherwood. Corners, Christian Gonzalez and Devon Witherspoon. Safeties, Budda Baker and Jesse Bates. DB, Derek Stingley. Second team, a lot of close calls here. At the interior, we have Jalen Carter and Leonard Williams. Edges, Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. Linebackers, Demario Davis and Bobby Wagner. Corners, Christian Benford and Trent McDuffie. Safeties, Brandon Jones, Julian Love. Defensive back, Jalen Johnson. I'm going to pause and point out the excellence of Demario Davis. This is my 6th season doing the All-Splash team. I can throw a link in the comments when we're finished. 6 seasons, Demario Davis has been my silver all-splash linebacker all 6 times. He's never been first. He's never been below second. And it takes a special brand of excellence to consistently be number 2. This is why the Buffalo Bills losing 4 straight Super Bowls is like not hilarious in that way, but how do you finish second 4 times in a row? I don't know. How does Demario Davis make the second team 6 straight seasons?
You have to be good to get to that level in the first place. Like, I make fun of Bills fans a lot for the 4 Super Bowl losses in a row, but you have to be good to get to 4 Super Bowls in a row. There are a lot of teams that would kill just to get to 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Right. And it's like you can juxtapose him with Fred Warner, who made the first team. Fred Warner has made 5 first teams. But in a way, being the second 6 times is a little bit more impressive than being first 5 times. Because it's like being first, you set the pace. Being second, you have to manage to be behind pace, but close enough to the pace that you finish second. It's bizarre. It's truly the strangest thing about how I do this. And then the first team, Chris Jones, Cameron Hayward, Trey Hendrickson, the sack leader, TJ Watt, Zach Bond, who was unbelievable for the Eagles. What a great pickup that was. Fred Warner, best linebacker in football. All-Pro Marlowe, he's back, his 3rd appearance. Patrick Surtain, Kyle Hamilton, Kirby Joseph led the NFL in interceptions. DB, Xavier McKinney was right behind him. And there's defense. Any qualms for you, Jack? I guess you'll get to your team, but...
Yeah, I mean, my team is mostly the same, I'm going to be honest. I have a couple different players here and there, but I feel like maybe I snubbed Kirby Joseph a little bit just because he likes to spear people's knees. So
yeah, I heard that. I'll stick with on the field performance.
Sure, but that was on the field, but sure, yeah, why not?
Enough.
Yeah, I won't take away the interception count though. That's obviously the points for that, but there you go.
Yeah,
talk about your offense.
All right, offensively, my fourth team: Baker Mayfield, Jahmyr Gibbs, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy, Terry McLaurin, Mark Andrews. Offensive line of Rashawn Slater, John Simpson, Zach Frazier, Kevin Zeitler, and Spencer Brown. Third team: Joe Burrow, Bijan Robinson, AJ Brown, Nico Collins, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Trey McBride, offensive line of Tristan Wirfs, Tyler Smith, Frank Ragnow, Trey Smith, and Zach Tom. Second team. This is where the controversy begins. Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Drake London, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., George Kittle. Offensive line of Trent Williams, Joe Thuney, Tyler Linderbaum, Quinn Miners, and Penei Sewell. Let me walk you through why I chose Derrick Henry over Saquon Barkley. Barkley has the rushing yards, 2,000 rushing yards, and he's a better receiver. However, the better receiver shtick isn't as valid this season because Saquon, while had more receiving yards, I don't think was a better receiving back than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry wasn't dropping passes like Saquon. Saquon quite literally lost the Falcons game because he had a drop on key play. And efficiency-wise, Derrick Henry wins. Saquon, yes, he had like 80 more yards. He had 20 more carries. Henry beat him out by 1/10 of a yard per carry. That's not what makes this a big deal. Notice there are two Eagles on the All-Pro offensive line, Mailata and Lane Johnson. For my money, the best two tackles in football this season were members of the Eagles. Notice in that conglomerate of players I listed off, there was only one Ravens offensive lineman, Linderbaum as the second team center. He and Ragnow to me were interchangeable. The Eagles have the best offensive line in football, either them or the Lions, and the Ravens for most parts of the season were a middling offensive line. And both teams, both running backs, get the benefit of having a mobile quarterback. Of course, Lamar is a singular entity in that regard, and Jalen Hurts is merely awesome in that regard. So I would take Derrick Henry's season over Saquon's. I would argue Saquon for Offensive Player of the Year. That's fine. I think Jamar Chase is going to get really snubbed from that award, by the way, winning the Triple Crown, but not winning Offensive Player of the Year. But Derrick Henry didn't have as many yards, but averaged more yards per carry on fewer carries. A better receiver, generally speaking, more touchdowns, if that's your name of the game, more broken tackles forced, and more yards after contact. So despite getting less production from his offensive line, he said, I'm going to eat anyways. And it's a 1A, 1B thing. I would argue both of these players are top 10 offensive players, obviously. And a spot like left guard this season was a little weak. Quentin Nelson was merely pretty good, but he gets to be the All-Pro because he was the best of a pretty good group. So first team, Lamar Jackson, statistically over Josh Allen is very easy. Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Triple Crown winner, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, rookie Brock Bowers, offensive line of Jordan Mailata, Quentin Nelson, Creed Humphrey, Chris Lindstrom, and Lane Johnson.
Sean McVay wanted to move heaven and earth for Brock Bowers. He was willing to. They probably wouldn't have drafted Jared Verse. I'd argue the Jared Verse pick ended up being better for the Rams anyway. But McVay did really want Brock Bowers. So.
Bowers was unbelievable this season.
Yeah. That would have been fun to watch him because we just ended up getting Colby Parkinson for 15 weeks before Higbee came back. So Higbee looks good now, though.
Colby Parkinson was a fun player.
Yeah,
I like the idea of him more than the player of him, but he's a fun idea. Like if you played with him in Madden, you'd have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have. I played with him in Madden a little bit. So.
I can imagine. And the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen thing, to me, the All-Pro and MVP usually go to the same player. I don't think it necessarily has to be the case, but this year Lamar should be the All-Pro. He should be the All-Pro. The MVP, you can argue. I'm open to arguments. I'm not opposed to Josh Allen winning it. I know Josh Allen will win it. There's a difference. So you look on any sort of place that you would argue Josh Allen versus Lamar. So look at Twitter, and you'll find people giving the odds and saying, oh, well, if you think Lamar is going to win the MVP, you should bet on it. Absolutely, that's fair. You can use your money the way you want to. But there's a difference between knowing Josh Allen is going to win it and thinking that is the incorrect choice. That happens to be my decision. Yeah. So I think Lamar Jackson should win MVP. I know Josh Allen will win it. But that's a story for another time.
Exactly. A bit of a spoiler. I in fact, you know what? I can just jump right to my offense too, because I went with Josh Allen. I went with Saquon Barkley. I know that's a dagger to your heart, but I get it.
Yeah. Tough scenes.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you, though. You can make a legitimate argument for it, and you don't have to like say for certain like it's not the wrong answer. Mm-hmm. There can be more than one person. There can be more than one legitimate case that you can make for other people. And Saquon, I also watched him demolish my team in person, and I also watched him pull off a reverse hurdle. When you pull off a move that crazy that they have to add it to Madden, they have to program it to add it to Madden mid-season. Scott Hansen made it the number, or I don't know if he made that decision, but it was the number 1 red zone play. They did the top 5 plays on red zone at the end of the year, at the end of the show. That was number 1, and it's like I was talking to a friend too about that, and it was like, how do you do that over the Commanders' Hail Mary? And I said, because the Hail Mary, as cool as it is and as somewhat rare as it is, it's only somewhat rare because we've seen it happen before.
Heck, the Commanders were involved in a Hail Mary last season.
That they were. But you're never going to see the backwards hurdle again. You're going to see some people try and imitate it. Obviously, the backwards hurdle alone is not the reason Saquon's on the list for me. But
yeah, imagine you're like a high school running back, and you're like, I'm going to try to be Saquon Barkley today. And
you are going to break your back and maybe more body parts.
Jeez.
Jamar, Justin Jefferson, we agree on. Puka Nacua, I gave him a bit of love there too, because his appearance, I think, when he came into the Rams mid-season after an injury during the Lions game, he changed the dynamic of their offense. Mm-hmm. I talked about their explosiveness a little bit earlier, but whatever explosiveness they do have is because of Puka Nacua.
Right.
And he almost got to 1,000 receiving yards, even though he didn't play week 18 because they didn't want him to get hurt again, which fine, fair enough. He was only 10 yards off anyway. Yeah, I gave love to the Detroit offensive line too.
I have my
same there.
I'm not disputing Puka's talent here. This is a purely production thing. You can certainly argue Puka is wide receiver 3. I'm okay with that. He did not happen to make my list. He was very close, I will say, and like by PFF grade, he would have made the list. But I'm gonna dock him for missing 6 games. I think that's, fair. If he had missed 3 games, like Mike Evans missed 3 games, and only had 1,000 yards and like 1,002 yards or whatever. But Evans made my list, the 14 games of equivalent production, also some extra touchdowns. I'll give the nod there. There were a couple receivers like Zay Flowers, for example, 1,000 yards, played 17 games though. He was not as worthy of a candidate, if you will, as Evans, who got 1,000 yards in 14 games, or Puka, who got basically 1,000 yards in 11 games. Even though they ended up with around the same yardage total, around the same touchdown total, what have you. So I'm okay with this list, honestly. The Allen and Barkley, of course, they were on my second team. Puka, it was an injury exclusion for me, and the offensive line, cool with. Yeah.
I just the thought process is that like he would have gotten the 1,000 yards anyway, and the fact that he did that through the injury is impressive to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he played like 9 games and 100 yards in like all 9 of them, something like that.
He's crazy. He's ridiculous. I did not want them to play him, but there was a bit of a talk among Rams fans. Should we play him? Should we not play him? Mm-hmm. You only need 10 yards for 1,000, but you're not really trying to break any records in the same way that Mike Evans was. Like, that's what I was DMing you about before the show, is like, you look at what Mike Evans did. Oh, they got him 1,000 yards. They had to play him. The Buccaneers did not have the division locked up. They had to play him. They had to try and fight for that win. The Rams could rest everybody for the most part. They didn't rest everybody, but they did on offense. So Although unfortunately they did lose Blake Corum to a broken forearm, which sucks.
Yeah, unfortunate.
He was not really getting used as much as Kyron Williams was.
Of course. Punt returner, Kyron Williams. He's still known as punt returner on my fantasy team.
It's hilarious that they made a big deal out of saying that he would do that because he never did. It was all Jordan Whittington and Xavier Smith. So, and like Jordan Whittington, I think he proved that like the Rams should actually like give him a look.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye out. Maybe in the playoffs too. Maybe he gets a bit more usage. Defense. Mostly the same. I'm obviously pushing up I'm on the Jared Verse hype train. I thought his stats up there were like up there with some of the better linebackers in the league this season. I thought
this is like a terminology thing. Like TJ Watt is an outside linebacker versus Myles Garrett, who is a defensive end. I count them all as edges, right? Jared Verse to me is an edge. You can count him as a linebacker if you wish. That's fine by me. Micah Parsons physically broke my list because, you know, he played the linebacker his first year, but he was like so good as an edge. So now he's an edge. But the first year, like he's obviously an all-pro, but as a linebacker, I don't know. As an edge, I don't know. But he's obviously one of the best 11 players in the world, or best defensive players in the world. So
there you go. But yeah, most of the names on this list are essentially the same. Chris Jones, Cam Hayward.
I like the love for Byron Murphy. He was a very close snub. Top 10 corner this year, absolutely.
Yeah, Byron Murphy was in the middle of there too. So did Pat Surtain. I thought he looked good. Xavier McKinney, of course, can't forget about him and all. I think he had like
8 interceptions.
He started the year where he had like I think 4 or 5 games in a row with interceptions. It was crazy to watch. So good season out of him.
One of my favorite players in the league. And then we have different safeties from the Lions, ironically enough.
Yeah, we do.
Kirby Joseph, you have Brian Branch.
Kirby Joseph, I've got Brian Branch, but I think the Lions have a good safety group. Kirby Joseph going after people's knees and taking unnecessary shots at Matthew Stafford on Twitter.
Fair enough.
That's how I feel, but
fair enough.
All right. Special teams. Nor Detroit love Jack Fox. I thought he had a solid year.
Yeah,
Xavier Gibson, that was a stats thing. He was just at the top of the stats when I looked at those. Brandon Aubrey, solid season, and then we agreed on.
Yeah, Aubrey's a goofy one because Mike McCarthy just puts him in the most impossible situations. So,
but then he does it.
Yeah, there are a few plays in the history of the NFL that stand out to me. I've talked at length about the Baker Mayfield Maserati play for the Browns. Brandon Aubrey was trotted out onto the field for a 65-yard field goal. That's fine. That happens. Joey Sly attempted like a 68-yard game winner. But it was the middle of the second quarter. And Mike McCarthy's like, can we punt? Can we go for it? No, we're going to send Brandon Aubrey out to hit from 65. And he did against Baltimore. And that is the most absurd decision that, like, when Justin Tucker goes out for like 60-plus yard kicks, which he does, once or twice a year, they're in these game-winning situations or game-tying situations or at the end of a half situation. So he took a 60-plus yarder against the Browns one year. He missed it. He took 61 against Detroit. He made that one, but that was 20 seconds to go to win the game. He famously hit from 66 against Detroit. That was to win the game. He famously missed against Jacksonville from 60-plus. That was to win the game. Brandon Aubrey just did this like on a random equivalent of like a Tuesday, right? Like Justin Tucker, his situations, every other kicker in the league, their situations, it's like Saturday night, Friday night, the big spotlight, or Sunday morning church. Brandon Aubrey is the equivalent of you going to church on a Tuesday night. like Justin Tucker's like, okay, Sunday mass, or for Catholics, or it's like Saturday, or for other religions, it might be Friday. Nope. Brandon Aubrey is pulling up to the church on a Tuesday, just a random Tuesday. He's going to mass. I did not think I was going to make a religious
insert opera scene in there somewhere for Justin Tucker too in his routine.
Oh man, Brandon Aubrey, man,
goofy, but it works.
Yeah, he was right there with Boswell to me, and of course he didn't end up making any of my teams. But this was I do have to give field goal percentage that ends up mattering. I know the difficulty of kicks was much higher for Aubrey, but Aubrey did miss some kicks inside of 40 yards and inside of 50 yards. And Nick Folk was, nails the whole year. Brandon McManus was nails the whole year. Boswell was nails the whole year. And Aubrey does get to kick indoors.
That helps.
Yeah, that does help
a lot. I'm also going to give a shout out to Rams rookie Josh Carty because he had a little bit of a rough patch, but it was a rough enough patch to the point where a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, he should be cut." And I will admit, I wasn't saying he should be cut, but I was saying probably would look into another kicker at that point. But he has done nothing but redeem himself since. He made 57 and 58-yard kicks yesterday, and he's been like just total redemption. So he's looked pretty solid, and I'm enjoying finally having a solid kicker post Matt Gay. So
and it's tough with kickers and punters for particularly kickers because your sample size for a season is like 35 kicks. You get 2 chances a week, right? And you have extra points. So say an average kicker gets 4 kicks a week. That is 68 plays for the entire season. Like, you won't get 100 field goal attempts. You might not get 100 field goal attempts in 3 years. So one bad kick, one missed field goal, or one that the hold's not right, or this is the Justin Tucker thing that Ravens fans complain about Stout as a holder. If the hold's off, it goes on the kicker, right? If the snap is off, it goes on the kicker. If it's blocked, it goes on the kicker, right? So you have 1 out of 100 kicks gets blocked. That's the difference between making 88% and 89% of your kicks out of 100, right? But in one season, missing 1 kick, even if you take 40 field goals, that's a 2.5 point difference in your field goal percentage. That's the difference between 90% and 87.5. That's the difference between 85 and 87.5. And that seems like a small difference, but when you look at it and you're like, okay, Folk made 95%, McManus made 95%. Well, what's the difference between them and Brandon Aubrey, right? That's one time that Mike McCarthy decides to send out Aubrey from the moon. And that's one time that Tennessee decides, we're going to go for it. Or we're going to use Ryan Stonehouse, our former All-Pro punter, to pin them deep, right? And so field goal percentage, I have my issues with. But and punters, too. You're like Corey Bojorquez had like 75 punts this season. Every team in the league, your running back is going to have more than 100 carries. Your wide receiver is going to have more than 100 targets. Your quarterback's going to have 400 pass attempts. Your offensive line might have 1,000 snaps. Your punter gets 75 snaps for the whole season. That matters. And one or 2 bad ones really shows. If you're an offensive tackle and you allow 1 or 2 sacks, par for the course. If you're a punter and you have 2 shanks in one season, that's going to really hurt your stats.
Yeah. I miss Johnny Hekker. I just miss Johnny Hekker. He was so good.
Yeah.
For the Rams. Glad he won a Super Bowl here and then dipped.
Yeah. Borderline All-Pro, or borderline All-Pro. Borderline Hall of Fame punter. There's not many of them. It's Ray Guy and hopefully Shane Leckler one day.
I don't think we have too much else to talk about other than the stuff that happened on Black Monday. We touched on Jared Mayo a little bit.
Do we want to go through our playoff brackets?
Sure, I guess we might as well. Let me find the playoff bracket really quick.
Sure. Yeah, fun playoffs. All NFC matchups are rematches. Unfortunately, the Vikings did lose, so they're not all week 1 rematches. That would have been pretty cool. But yeah, and the AFC side, Baltimore-Pittsburgh, of course, that is a rematch. Buffalo-Denver is not, and neither is LA-Houston. Houston, of course, in their trademarked now 4:30 slot, 3:30 Central on Saturday. So I'll start with that one. The Chargers are big favorites, and there's no reason for them not to be. I'm going to point out, this is totally the game the Chargers lose, actually. I don't think they will.
Right?
Huh?
Feels like it, right?
Yeah, this is very much a game the Chargers lose. To be clear, I don't think they will, but this is very much a game the Chargers lose. So if there is an upset in the first round, to be clear, I don't think the Rams beating the Vikings is an upset. If there was an upset to happen, I would put my money on the Texans beating the Chargers, not because the Texans are any good, but it's because the Chargers are the Chargers.
Yeah. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend earlier today, and I think the thought process was like, or one of us was saying, it was like a group text and stuff like that, and one of them was saying like, oh, Jim Harbaugh is really good at building one of the guys in this group chat is a Chargers fan, and he was talking about how he has just zero faith whatsoever. And someone else was like, okay, well, Harbaugh is really good at building the culture and everything like that, etc. And I said, while this is true, is it good enough to overcome the franchise culture, like the ownership culture too, of like this team constantly falls apart when it matters? So
yeah, never the bride, always the bridesmaid.
I really, and like another point that this Chargers friend made was that if they do win this game, they're probably going to go up against a team like Buffalo or Baltimore or Kansas City in the first round, and they're not getting past any of them. So
yeah, I have my doubts for the Chargers.
It's a tough road, honestly. It's a tough road for anybody, but that's just the nature of the sport. But
yeah, to be clear, I am picking the Chargers in that game. I don't think that's controversial, but this is the spot that if Pittsburgh were in the spot, this is also the game the Steelers lose. But if the Ravens were in the spot, the Ravens would put the beat down on Houston. I would have no. If they didn't win the game by 10, I'd be out on the Ravens permanently. But hey, they beat them by 29 on Christmas. That's exactly how that game should have gone. So I'm taking the Chargers. I would imagine you're taking the Chargers as well.
I am taking the Chargers, yeah. I hope CJ Stroud explodes and proves me wrong, but I don't think that's going to happen.
That might be cooked. We are going to have some truly bizarre conversations this offseason because Bryce Young down the stretch was unbelievable, and CJ Stroud down the stretch was merely mediocre. So, Steelers at Ravens, the eternal rivals meet for the 5th time in the playoffs. The Steelers are 3-1. The Ravens won the last one though, so who knows? The Ravens and Steelers split their regular season matchups, both winning the home game. Who you got, Jack?
Before I tell you who I got, I've got a better idea. I just found the playoff predictor tab for this, so it'll actually reseed it for us. So
beautiful. Okay,
we pick the Chargers here.
Yep.
In my case, what game are we doing? We're doing Ravens Steelers.
Yeah, Ravens Steelers. We can go.
I'm going Baltimore.
I'm going to go Baltimore as well. I hate being confident in a Ravens game against the Steelers, but I'm going to be confident here. I think Baltimore is in that group of teams that can clearly win the Super Bowl. And if they don't win it this year, I don't want to say I'm out because they're not favored to win it this year. Like last year, they were favored over the Chiefs to win that game. And I don't know if they would have been favored over the Niners, but because they had just beaten the Niners a couple weeks earlier, but that Vegas is Vegas. So
yeah.
Baltimore is going to run out of excuses. I know they're the 3 seed this year and they're not the 1 seed. They've been the 1 seed twice with Lamar, but this is truly a generational legacy opportunity for Lamar. The way the playoffs could work out, you get Pittsburgh, who has been his bugaboo for years. Then you have Buffalo, who beat him in the playoffs in 2020. And then you have Kansas City, who beat him in the playoffs last year in the AFC title game and has been his other regular season bugaboo. So you are talking about a historic run potentially. And it's analogous to me as a Ravens fan to when Flacco beat Andrew Luck, the greatest quarterback prospect of all time as a rookie. Then Peyton Manning, arguably the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. Then Tom Brady, who the greatest quarterback of all time, who also beat the Ravens the previous season in the AFC Championship game that Flacco threw a couple picks in, and then beat John Harbaugh's brother in the Super Bowl. So I don't know who the NFC equivalent is. Maybe it's the Lions because Harbaugh Jim used to coach at Michigan. I don't know. Or maybe the Eagles because the Eagles did beat the Ravens this season. But I don't know. This is a big year for Baltimore.
It is. I think the next game should be pretty easy to predict. I'm going to go.
I think we're
Buffalo.
both taking Buffalo.
I know we said all year, don't let Sean Payton into the playoffs, but you're not beating the Buffalo Bills at home.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And unfortunately, I think this is the least likely game for there to be an upset. I think the Chargers could charger their way into a loss, and the Ravens, it's a division game. So those are more on the board to me. The Bills are big favorites over Denver. You don't get too many touchdowns plus spreads in the playoffs. But yeah, I'll take the Bills over the Broncos. Rams Vikings. I'm taking the Rams. I'm taking
the Rams.
The Rams Yeah,
we've already had the sample size in that we beat them this year, but I think the Rams are just. I look at that performance last week from Sam Darnold, and I'm not scared.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean that they cannot explode. That does not mean like Justin Jefferson, you still got to pay attention to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Rams defense, the way it's playing, if they put up another game like they did last time out against the Vikings, I think they should be just fine.
Yeah, I don't trust Brian Flores against good quarterbacks other than Lamar. I have my doubts. You know, the Vikings went 14-3 and they lost to Matt Stafford and Jared Goff twice. And those games, the defense did not look particularly good. And you take those games out and ask yourself, how many good quarterbacks did the Vikings play this season? And the answer is not too many. And the ones, the reasonable quarterbacks they did play, CJ Stroud turned out to be a pumpkin. Kyler Murray, the Cardinals probably should have won that game. They had some really weird math that they decided to go against. Then Jordan Love twice, and Jordan Love is only good when it's Toyotathon. So fair enough. They beat him during Toyotathon, so congratulations there. But I think the Vikings, unfortunately, are very similar to the 2022 version of them. That great regular season. They won a lot of close games. They were 14-3 this season. They were 12-5 a couple years ago. Had that crazy record in one score games, and then lost a one score game in the playoffs. I think that could be a similar case here. Bucks Commanders. That's a fun one.
That is a fun one.
There might be 100 points scored in this one.
He's not kidding. We might get another 105-point game. I am going to go with the Commanders. I think that they can pull off the upset here because the way, I don't know, I just feel like that Jaden Daniels and the ridiculous amount of clutch that this guy has had as of late has been I don't know, it's just been through the roof. I feel like they're you know, these are games where you wouldn't be trusting them to win in the past, but it feels like a whole new look team. And I feel like the Commanders they kind of have like that Lions aura that they had last year where it was like underdog team. They make some improvements and it and like they're starting to like win a lot of games. And it's like, okay, they might be able to make a little bit of magic happen here.
I see the vision. I don't trust the defense. I don't think the defense is particularly good. Shout out to Bobby Wagner. He's had a great season. Marshawn Lattimore, if he plays or doesn't play, that's gigantic because we all know he is the Mike Evans kryptonite. So if Marshawn Lattimore plays, I think the Commanders have a shot. But I think the Bucks win. I think the Bucks have playoff history on their side, that they've been there, done that. They won a playoff game last year. They beat Philly last year. That's an impressive win looking back on it, seeing how good the Eagles are this year. And Baker Mayfield, I'll take him over Daniels slightly. Daniels moving forward, but I think Baker this year, the Baker to Evans connection, the Bakers to Jalen McMillan connection. Shout out to Bucky Irving. We haven't mentioned him on the show today.
Bucky Irving is
monster. He was all rookie team, very close. He could have been as high as like my third team. But Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan are just that group is like so tight together. But give me Tampa in this one. So our first split decision.
You could argue either way, to be honest. If Tampa wins this game, by the way, that puts the Rams in Detroit instead of Philadelphia because I'm taking the Eagles.
Yeah, we're both taking the Eagles.
Unless, of course, no Jalen Hurts.
I think they can beat the Packers even with Kenny Pickett.
You know what? That's fair. You're right. You're right. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the only way this would split. So I guess those are our wild card predictions.
Yes. Do we want to go through the rest, or do we want to save that for next week?
I think we can save that for next week.
Okay.
Mostly because I'm also running out of time. I got to get going in a little bit.
That's absolutely fair. All right. Any final words before we dip?
Looking forward to the playoffs. It's that fun time of year. I will say I hate that we have another Monday night game because if the Rams do win, which I expect them to, then that means they got another short week. So, but they had the last time they had a short week.
Good things happened. So. Yeah, good things happened. The Ravens have, they play on Saturday. It'll be their fourth consecutive non-Sunday game.
That's crazy.
They
That
played.
feels like a COVID year type deal.
Yeah, they played on Saturday before Christmas. Then they played on Christmas, which is a Wednesday. Then after Christmas, they played on a Saturday, and their first playoff game is a Saturday. So there is a non-zero chance the Ravens play 5 consecutive non-Sunday games.
Insanity.
Yeah, because their theoretical game against the Bills could be a Saturday game as well. So who knows? Although they like to put the 1 seeds on the Saturday. I don't know how that would work if it was Rams Lions, they wouldn't put that on a Saturday because
that would be the Sunday night game again.
Yes,
probably.
or the Sunday afternoon game.
Something like that on Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think they should do 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, to be honest. Don't give a team a short week in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's because it I know it's stupid to say that something is unfair in sports, but that I think is legitimately unfair because only the team that wins that game is going to have to there are 6 teams left by that point, 8 teams left, whatever it is by that point, and only one team is going to have the disadvantage of playing on a short week in the wild card round or in the divisional round. And in the Rams case in 2021, granted they won the Super Bowl, so I don't want to sound like I'm complaining too much, but then they ended up playing on a Saturday after playing a Monday game. That's bad. That's not a lot of rest.
That's bad. That's not cool. If memory serves, last year they had both 1 seeds play on Saturday. The Ravens were in the 4:30 slot and the Niners were in the 8 o'clock slot. So that would be unfortunate if it was Rams at Lions. I hope that doesn't happen for the sake of the Rams. I hope they would move that game to Sunday and you just get, in this case, it would be Bucs-Eagles. Bucs-Eagles. That could be an exciting one. Playoff rematch 3 times over now. They played in 21 and 24 and 23. 22 who did and the Bucs Dallas beat the Bucs in 22. That's right. So exciting times. Hopefully we have a Ravens Super Bowl. That would be pretty cool. Although we would be at each other's throats for like a month straight.
Yeah, we would. I don't think we would. This show would exist anymore.
All right. Before we leave, I got a question for Jack and a question for the audience. Next Saturday, I haven't run this by you at all, Jack, so if this is not okay, just let me know. Preferable to you, A, I go to the game. I go to Ravens Steelers. Or B, we do a live stream for that game.
I think you should go to the game.
I think I should go as well.
I feel like that's,
I think I
go
should
to the
go
game.
as well.
I don't think that's much of a choice. If you have an opportunity to legitimately go to a playoff game, go. I made the mistake of not doing it, and it sucked. Not a football playoff game, but a hockey playoff game. But that's besides the point.
They could lose, which would be miserable against all the Steelers fans. But they could also win, and that'd be awesome. So I don't know. That would be the first time we have a winning record against the Steelers since 2019. So cautiously optimistic. All right, Jack, any final words?
I deliberately wore this merch today. I got the new one that's on the way, but I deliberately wore that. All right, that's enough.
Beautiful. All right.
We're good.
I'm good.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching us live today on the Scoreboard Watch on the Sports Desk episode 104. Be sure to like, subscribe. We appreciate it. All kinds of stuff that we're going to do in the offseason. We're looking forward to it. Ring-a-ding-ding, the Le'Veon Bell notification bell so you can be notified when videos drop. Follow us on X at all the social handles below. There you go. You're doing your best. What's his name impression?
Des Bryant, baby.
Des Bryant. Yeah, Des Bryant.
That's a Ravens legend right there.
We will see you guys at some point next week. And as always, Super Bowl champion Aaron Donald trains with knives. Peace.